We're back. You're tuned into In My Humble Opinion on 101.3 Jams. And as we mentioned earlier in the show, we are bringing your local public office, people vying for public office this election, city council members, school board districts, things like that. And so our first guest for today, who's that, Charles?
We have a return visitor. And just to let everybody know, this is an open forum. Anybody who wanted to be here could be here, and so I'm happy to say that our first guest today to reach out, and it was a mutual and reciprocal invitation. Miss Amy Laufer. Amy,
hey,
good
Charles,
to see you.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity.
So thanks for joining us today. And some may know, but Amy is a lifelong resident of the city of Charlottesville, she has a motto and a slogan: "Move Charlottesville forward." On November 7th, vote Amy Laufer for City Council. So Amy, as far as before we get deeper and dig into the issues, if there's anything else, any other way that you would want to introduce yourself, just first before the candidate, as the person, Amy, how would you want the people of Cville and our listening audience to know who you are?
Yeah. So actually, I just want to let you know, I grew up in a small town in Wisconsin called Mount Calvary. I'm not a lifelong resident, actually. I moved here about 15 years ago. My husband and I met in the Peace Corps, and he's actually from Charlottesville. So
gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
I think I meant to say long time. I said lifelong. I meant
hey,
long
but
time.
I appreciate that. It feels like it's been almost a lifetime, especially after the summer. But I have 3 kids, 13, 12, and 10. They just had their birthdays last week.
Okay.
So shout out to them. Actually, Hannah, Adam, and Henry. I know they're listening right now, and so is my husband, Aaron. I've been on the school board for the past 6 years. We've raised graduation rates to over 90% this year. And I'm really proud of that. And I'd love to go to city council and get results there as well.
Okay. All right. Nice. Well, without further ado, then, we're less than a couple weeks away.
Not even a couple.
Not even
honestly,
a couple. Less than a week away.
Somebody just asked me, it's not next Tuesday, it's the following Tuesday. So
right, November 7th.
Yep, November 7th. We have one more weekend, and we're really focusing on getting out the vote right now. We know that's important. We want everyone to go to the polls and vote. You go to your normal polling station. And, I'm really excited to be doing this. I think it's incredibly important work. I started this, back out in February, actually. But, a lot has happened since then. But I'm still completely focused on one of the initiatives I talked about back in February, which is called the Piedmont Promise. That is an initiative that will support kids going to PVCC, our local community college, tuition free if they have a 2.5 or higher GPA and they're at or below the median income. Currently, we have about 70 students that are enrolled right out of CHS into PVCC, and we can increase that to 100. And if we provide them with this free tuition and we give them more supports, academic and, confidence-wise, we could do that for between $500,000 to $800,000, and I think that's a great way to invest in our community and invest in our workforce and increase our middle class in Charlottesville.
Now, how's that any different, for example, than a Pell Grant? Because if they fall under those income criteria, then they would qualify for a loan anyway that they don't have to pay back.
Yes, actually, so many of the communities have students filling out the federal aid form first, which we would also do, but then we can provide a stipend that would be offering them money for transportation, money for books. I actually have Sally Hudson here. She is a professor over at UVA that kind of specializes in this, and we know there's other barriers other than just money, and we're trying to provide a program that's going to meet those needs of not just financial but also academic, with some tutoring. And I also am working with James Bryant. I know a lot of people know him. He is a counselor, a retired counselor from CHS, and is now a counselor at PVCC. And he recognizes that many students just need a plan to make sure that they will stay in school and finish. And we've been coming up with some ideas of how we could do that.
Right. So Amy, let me interject there. So the higher ed is one piece, but as far as those who may be a little disgruntled with our current K-12 system, is there anything that you'd like to see change there?
Well, we've done a lot in the K-12 and pre-K and in the past 6 years that I've been on school board. We've increased our preschool program to 260 students. We have a 4-year-old program that's actually state funded primarily, but we also increased to a 3-year-old program, which is fully supported by local taxpayer money. And then in terms of our elementary school students, we have provided an after-school reading literacy program that goes 3 days a week for an hour and a half, and it's called the Early Bridges to Literacy, and that's been so crucial in helping students catch up if they're behind in reading. And I can say my children have been in that program as well. I would love to talk some more about that. And then we have in addition to the after-school program, we increased our summer school program, where it used to be 3 weeks at 3 days a week, and now it is 6 weeks at full 9 to 5, and we partner with Parks and Rec. We went from 200 kids participating in our summer program to 950.
Okay.
And to give you a perspective on that, we only have about 4,200 kids enrolled in our city schools. So we're providing almost a quarter of our students to have a free or low-cost summer program for 6 weeks, which is really incredible.
Okay, now let me ask with that stance and that idea, those programs even in place. There's still a significant part of our population that talks about things like achievement gap, or whether or not public education here works for everybody. So those programs that you just mentioned, for our listeners, which is predominantly an African American audience, though we scale the whole demographic. Are those things that just need to be continued, in your opinion, and need to be strengthened in order to help some of the kids who seem like there's an achievement gap for whatever the reason may be, but we know between African Americans and Caucasian students. So is it something different you want to do, or you want to sort of bolster up those programs you just mentioned?
Well, actually, we have more than just those programs. I, of course, would love to continue those programs. Even if I'm not on school board, I would hope they keep them up. But then when we go to our high school, we have, we've totally changed our alternative learning program. It's now at Lugo McGinnis Center, which is right next to the Venable Elementary School. We actually purchased a building with the City Council about 4 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, where we have students that are having difficulty in the traditional setting that are now at Lugo McGinnis Center, which is a real school with a gym and a kitchen and an outdoor space. And we've seen, before we did not have many students graduating out of our alternative learning program, but now this past year we had 15 students. And, to give you a perspective, 1 percentage point on our graduation rate is 3 students. So that's pretty significant. And beyond that, inside the high school, we do have an alternative program that's called Walk. And students that are having difficulty during the day can go down to Walk and have therapy. We have therapists there, and we also have food pantry there, and we also have online learning courses so that students can continue to get their credits. But I think, because I will just let you know that the African American graduation rate right now is 89.6%. And I think the challenge we have now is to get more students of color in our AP and honors courses. And so to kind of work on that, what we've done is we've actually done unleveled English courses, because we know that's where a challenge may be. So all students take the same English, and then they opt into regular honors or AP, and that kind of breaks down the barriers there. And we also implemented this program last year called the Link Crew, which is upperclassmen 11th and 12th graders that are mentoring 9th and 10th graders. And my hope is that program will extend not just beyond, they're really giving mentoring in terms of friendship and helping kids feel more comfortable at high school, but I also want them to be starting to mentor them into taking higher level courses, because we know they're capable of it. And in fact, what we did in our middle school when I was chair of the board is, and we've continued to do, by the way, we took our 5th and 6th grade students that were, maybe they didn't get into the honors math because there's 3 components and they were only able to get 2 components. But as we did the first semester of math and we noticed these students were performing well, we just said, you know what, we're just going to make them take the honors. And we did that with, I want to say it was over 35 students. And that's significant, because that will change what goes on for the next year and the next year. So I think the schools are working on many different levels of trying to help achievement become higher and greater and successful for kids. And I can tell you the Piedmont Promise could have never been implemented until we had a graduation rate that was, significant enough that kids could actually take part in a program like this.
Right.
Sorry.
Let me ask you before, and I'll kick it over to Max. But so I can make sure that that I don't lose that point, Amy. So it sounded like that you said that the students were made to take the honors classes. Now let me ask.
Well, I should say we did have the parents, of course, give consent and all those things. But what we felt is that we wanted to encourage them to do it because we knew they were capable.
Right, and I totally get that. But my point that I want to get clarification on is that does it seem like that the schools maybe aren't doing enough or putting enough focus on African American students that are advanced students or honors ready students, to the point where we have to have a special sort of focus and a special task force to even, get them in there. Shouldn't that be just the normal routine? Or
well, the thing about moving up to these courses, there was this 3 components, which quite frankly I don't remember the exact ones, but I don't know exactly specific to them, but I feel like it was specific to them. Actually, any child that seemed to be performing better and we felt was capable. A lot of times, and I can say this for myself, I am a first-generation college graduate, and, I was rural poor, and I was one of the only kids from a farm that actually was taking an AP course, and, I was not encouraged from staff or my friends, quite frankly, and certainly not many of my extended family. And I didn't see myself as capable of doing that. But, I just did it anyway. And I think what we're trying to break down is that also that internal feeling. It's hard to describe. I mean, I also had the same problem when I went to college. It took me 6 years to graduate. I almost dropped out my second year, and I've talked about this a lot because at the time, the scholarship money ran out, and now all of a sudden I had full tuition to pay, and I was working at Wendy's, Avis, dry cleaner, and trying to figure out my finances, and then I didn't feel like maybe this is not the place for me anymore. So, I had to work with a counselor, a lot to, stay in the game. The thing is, just don't give up.
Right.
You just got to keep going. And I feel like the schools are really attempting on many levels to, promote this.
Right, gotcha. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, on IMHO 101 Jams, we are talking to City Council candidate Amy Laufer. Remember, you can reach us at 422-9101 or IMHO 101 Jams on Gmail and all of the social media. So Amy, let's try to knock through your vision for the city of Charlottesville. First, workforce development.
Yeah.
What would you like to change and improve there?
Well, that's my Piedmont Promise idea, and we have a GO initiative, which is where the city partners with PVCC to find employers for certain types of jobs, and we have an 8-week training package that we offer up, and we get people through the 8 weeks, and then we have an exact employer to hire them. And I think we could increase that not just to our regular citizens, but also our citizens with disabilities, our adults with disabilities. We know that we have 2 employers, Centera Health and Marriott, that are willing to do programs that would hire and employ our adults with disabilities. I'd like to see our Works initiative go in that way as well. And I also talked a lot in my campaign about affordable housing. We can't allow any more special use permits to be given without making affordable units for people to live in. A lot of the initiatives we had in the 2000s were about building houses or apartments for students. And, that's what we see on West Main right now. And the problem that we're seeing, though, is that none of those units were actually affordable for our own citizens. And without affordable housing, we know what happens, right? We have more congestion for traffic because people got to drive in from Stanton, Waynesboro.
Mm-hmm. Well, without affordable housing, you got a whole lot more problems than just that.
Well, yes, actually, then we see that people are leaving. I think that with the housing issue, it's a spectrum. We have housing for homeless, housing for 30% annual mean income, housing for 80% annual mean income. We have workforce housing, and then we have seniors that want to stay in their homes and feel that the tax rate is just increasing and they can't pay it. So I think we need to have a more variety of housing that we're building, and we need to require affordable homes being built when things are built. I mean, we can no longer take money and put it aside. We have a fund right now of $3.2 million, and, we need to make that do the work for us. We need to be investing that in ways that actually creates units. The other thing
when you say take money and put it aside, I know that contractors can opt to pay a certain fee, and if paid, they don't have to include affordable housing in their units. Is that what you mean by taking money and putting? Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly. We have to stop doing that. We can't allow that to continue, because then we're just going to continue to build things that people can't afford. And, I've been knocking doors for 7 years on my school board runs and all kinds of for other campaigns. And I can tell you, this city is completely changing. It really is changing. And it's going to continue to do that unless we make some policies that can allow people to stay in their homes, and that actually we build units that are affordable to our citizens. And so I'm very committed to that. I think we have to get a lot more creative. There's a state organization called Virginia Housing Development Authority. They lend money to people that want to build homes. And actually, yesterday when I was knocking on the door, I was talking about this, and the woman that bought her home.
Excuse me, Ms. Laufer. I have a question for you. I'm sorry. This is Razor.
Okay.
Is this something that you have to get the vote all the way across the board? Because if I understand what you're saying, and we had a call-in question, and you pretty much answered it. What do you plan to do for the Section 8 people? Because by the time they build up, nobody can afford it. I understand that. And I'm glad that you're acknowledging it. But what will you be able to do on your own for that?
Do you mean, do I need to have full support from City Council?
Absolutely.
Right. Well, you know what? We know what we got to count to. We got to count to 3. We always need a majority vote of 3. And, a lot of these ideas, these are not crazy ideas, okay? Many communities are doing these things. If you put a VHDA overlay on a piece of land, that means that they can lend to the person that's going to build there, and they can build affordable units, because that's the whole point of the loan. And actually, the woman that I spoke with yesterday, she bought her home with a VHDA loan. So this mechanism is the mechanism being the loan from VHDA. It is, multifaceted. It doesn't have to be to the person building. It can also be to the person that wants to own the home. So we need, and I've talked to staff about this. The city staff, they feel that comfortable that we could be accessing this, and I'm not sure why we haven't in the past, but I think we're at a point where we have to get real about this $3.2 million and how we can really use it to effectuate change.
All right. So Amy, as we try to wrap up here, I want to make sure that we tackle, and you can have your closing pitch, but relationships. I noticed that you have the simple one word relationships as part of your vision. So I wanted to give you the opportunity to tell the folks exactly what that means, because the first thing it makes me think is, of course, the kind of summer that we had here in the city of Charlottesville. Right. So there's a lot of there's a lot of disgruntled citizens.
Yes.
There's a lot of frustrated citizens. There are citizens who are saying, I told you so. There are some newer citizens that are saying that this isn't Charlottesville, it's outsiders. So relationships.
Well, I can tell you when I first ran for school board, somebody asked me what's the first thing I'm going to do. And I said, the first thing I'm going to do is create relationships with the existing staff and with my counterparts on the school board. And it is the most important thing. This summer, unbelievable. I was there. I witnessed it. I called the police 3 times before they showed up. I mean, the frustration is real, and it's for a good reason. We need to know what happened there. And I know you cannot do anything without a relationship. And it takes a lot of time of listening and discussing to come up with a solution. I think what the city council is facing right now is distrust amongst themselves and the city staff and the community. And I would like to, in terms of city council, first, I think we need a retreat. We need to have a training on what is the role of city council, because I think some city council members are confused about that. And the truth is, when you get elected to school board, you go off to a training with the Virginia School Board Association, and they explain to you what that job is. And we need to do that with city council. And then furthermore, I would like to instill some protocols, some kind of like agreements of how things are going to be done. And we do the same thing on school board. And it's important to have a structure in place that everybody understands what the expectation is. Then within the staff, I would actually like to offer counseling if it's possible, because I think, this was way more than somebody that just, thought they were going to be, doing neighborhood development services. I mean, that was way more than anybody, I think they need some support in that way. And I also think we need to be clear with the city manager what we expect. I would expect, like we have on school board, we have biannual review of the senior staff. And we, anyway, it's very boring kind of stuff, but it's really critical to have that structure in place so that you can run efficiently and effectively. And by the way, I think this is why we have so much angst right now. Because that was not clear, and clearly something broke down. I mean, and something that's not so boring as you stated it is more directly. I think we gotta ask you this before we let you go. Sure. Is just directly with where your vote would be, or like where your efforts would be when we look at a group that by definition are terrorist groups that are coming into Charlottesville or who are setting up shop at the parks. Is that something that you feel is legally allowed, or would you fight against that? And also the removal of the Confederate monuments and statues. Would you vote against those? Well, they've already voted, and I would continue to just do the thing that they voted for. I don't want to have to go through all that. I know it's in the courts right now. I think it's going to be decided actually at the end of this. I actually think it's on Monday.
But surely you made your own personal decision. How do you personally feel about it?
I personally feel like they need to be moved now. I mean, I've definitely had an evolution of thought, but they need to go. And I hope we can have a ruling that will allow for that to be done quickly. And what was your other question?
Yeah, I was asking about those groups setting up shop.
Honestly, I think what it really revealed to us is how we didn't understand our own permitting process. There are a lot of things that we can be doing that would limit this. First of all, maybe that permit's only going to be for 20 minutes. Like limiting what that permit means to groups. I think, definitely be interested in figuring that out.
That's easy when you out there maybe picketing for animals or something. Like there may be a case when you want to give them a longer length of time versus something like August 12th. So I don't know. I don't know if
I think it's going to be
time frame.
I'm just offering that as a suggestion. I'd be open to other suggestions. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's certainly something we have to think about because, our own city council members were having things without a permit. And, I think that made it more difficult in the end. So it's like, I think we have to be really consistent. And, I hope we can come up with a policy that can eliminate this continuing to happen. I mean, certainly this is not good for our community and for our soul, for, anything. I mean, my children are Jewish, and, to hear those things, it's beyond the pale. All of it is beyond the pale, honestly. And quite frankly, I think it's a lot to do with the federal government.
What, we do have to take a quick break. So for those of you listening, we are speaking with Amy Laufer, who is running for a seat on City Council. You're tuned in to In My Humble Opinion on 101.3 Jams, and we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll have her wrap up her closing comment.
And we're back. IMHO 101 Jams, #1 for classics in today's hip hop and R&B. And so we have Amy with us. We had to go to break, but we want to make sure that Amy lets you all know what she wants you to know before November 7th. Amy?
Yeah, I want everybody to show up and vote November 7th. I hope you'll vote for me. If you don't, fine. But you need to vote. People fought for us to have this right, and I feel strongly that we all have to exercise that. And if you're interested in finding out more about my campaign, I have a website, www.amylaufer.com. And you can email me at lauferforcouncil@gmail.com, and that is LAUFER FERFORCOUNCIL@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you, and I'd love to hear ideas. I'm going to tell you, the Walker crossing guard came really because of my son and how he kept telling me that we should have somebody there. And I know I will listen to anybody and hear a good idea, and I will champion it. And I hope I'll earn your vote on November 7th. And thanks so much to you guys for having me. I really appreciate it.